Commander Elias Monroe had faced many strange situations in his 10 years of service with the United Earth Fleet, but nothing quite like this. The human delegation had been sent to a newly discovered star system, where an alien species called the Lorani had recently made contact. Their civilization was unlike anything humanity had encountered. Elegant cities floating above vast oceans, technologies that bent the rules of physics, and a culture that seemed devoted entirely to peace and diplomacy. Elias had been chosen not for his rank, but for his ability to observe and communicate, a skill more valuable in diplomacy than in combat. He landed on the largest Lorani station, a gleaming structure suspended in the violet mist of the planet's upper atmosphere. Everything about the station seemed fragile and delicate: slender towers that curved like the petals of a flower, bridges made of translucent materials, and soft lights that changed color depending on the mood of the environment. He was greeted by a delegation of Lorani diplomats, all graceful, all seemingly quiet, and all exuding calm authority. But one of them stood out. She was small, even by human standards, with large eyes that seemed to hold a world of thought. Her skin shimmered faintly in the light, and her movements were deliberate, almost hesitant. She introduced herself softly, her voice like a gentle hum that made it almost necessary to lean closer to hear her. "I am Celia," she said. "Welcome to our station, Commander Monroe." Elias noticed that while the others carried themselves with the elegance of trained diplomats, Celia seemed almost shy. She didn't demand attention, didn't speak loudly, and never interrupted. For a moment, he underestimated her. She seemed more a pet than a partner in negotiations, yet there was something about the careful precision of her movements that hinted at intelligence far beyond her appearance. The first few hours were formalities. Introductions, presentations of technology, explanations of governance, and discussions about trade possibilities. The human delegation noted the Lorani's polite curiosity, their fascination with human customs, and their insistence on observing peace at every turn. Even the station's defense systems, which had initially seemed minimal, appeared to be governed by nonviolent principles. Everything about the Lorani screamed that they were gentle, non-threatening beings. Yet, Elias felt a slight unease. He had dealt with many civilizations that appeared peaceful but were hiding dangers. He shared his observations quietly with Lieutenant Rizal, the communications officer. "Something isn't right," he murmured. "They're too perfect, too calm. Even their security forces seem almost inactive. I don't like it." Rizal nodded. "Maybe we're overthinking it. They are a peaceful species after all." Elias didn't respond. He couldn't shake the feeling that something beneath the surface was waiting, watching. As the delegation continued their tour, Celia often lingered at his side, asking questions about Earth, about humanity's culture, about the way humans solved conflicts. Her questions seemed simple, almost innocent, but Elias began to notice that she was listening to everything, noting even the smallest details, her large eyes following his every move. Later that day, during a demonstration of Lorani technology, the unease he felt deepened. The Lorani displayed a small drone capable of moving at impossible speeds, reacting to environmental changes almost before they happened. Elias had assumed it was automated, controlled by a distant computer. But Celia, quietly observing from the side, gestured slightly, and the drone immediately changed course, adjusting to her subtle hand movements as though responding directly to her will. He frowned. "You control it?" he asked. Celia tilted her head, her expression serene. "I guide it," she said softly. "We all learn to do this. It is tradition." He had expected small adjustments, subtle manipulations. What he didn't expect was the precision, the speed, the way the drone obeyed her almost instinctively. It moved with a grace that belied any sense of weakness. For a moment, he caught himself thinking of her as fragile again, only to realize that she was capable of commanding forces beyond his immediate understanding. That evening, the humans were invited to a ceremonial dinner, held in a hall that seemed to float above the clouds. The lights shifted gently, casting soft shades over the assembled delegates. Celia sat beside him, still soft-spoken, still quiet. The conversation was polite, mostly small talk about the planets, the stars, and the differences between Laurani culture and human culture. Yet there was a sense of purpose in her questions, a careful probing of his responses. "You humans adapt quickly," she observed quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your species survives even when the odds are against you." Elias was taken aback. Few aliens had ever made such a direct observation, much less voiced it so plainly. He smiled politely. "We try our best," he said. Celia nodded, as if accepting the answer, then returned to observing the room. There was a moment of silence, comfortable yet charged, as if she was processing more than she let on. After dinner, as the human delegation prepared to return to their quarters, Elias lingered in the hall, studying the architecture, the lights, and the patterns of movement of the Laurani. He wasn't the only one observing. Celia appeared at his side once more. "You are cautious," she said softly. "I notice it. It is admirable." Elias chuckled lightly, surprised by the insight. "And you, are you always so quiet?" She smiled faintly, but it was not the timid expression he had assumed. There was something sharp in her gaze, a spark that suggested awareness and intelligence beyond what most outsiders would assume from her small frame. "I am quiet," she said, "but quiet does not mean weak." He nodded slowly, sensing the weight of her words but not yet fully understanding their meaning. That night, as Elias settled into his quarters, the unease he had felt all day returned. Something about the Laurani seemed off. They were too precise, too controlled. Even Celia's soft-spoken manner seemed carefully measured. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being observed in ways that went beyond simple curiosity. A sudden alert on his communicator made him sit up sharply. "Commander Monroe," Rizaz's voice said urgently. "There's a signal encrypted, but someone is trying to access our communications. It doesn't match anything we've seen before." Elias grabbed the console. "Can you trace it?" "Partially," Rizaz replied, "but it's bouncing across their network." "Whoever it is, they know what they're doing." He frowned. Something was happening beneath the surface. Whoever it was, they were trying to test him, to gauge the human's presence. Before he could act, a light shimmer appeared in the corner of the room. And then Celia was there silently, without warning. "Commander," she said softly, "you are in danger." Elias barely had time to react. In a flash, she moved with precision and strength that defied her delicate appearance. In an instant, she pinned him to the wall, holding him steady with one arm. Her face was calm, her expression serene, but her eyes burned with intensity. "Stay still," she whispered. "They will not expect this." The moment was over almost as quickly as it began. Elias, caught off guard by her speed and strength, realized the truth in her words. She was not the fragile, small, soft-spoken diplomat he had assumed. She was a warrior, a protector, and far more capable than anyone in the room could imagine. Once the threat had passed, a group of rogue drones attempting to breach the station's defenses, she released him gently, stepping back as if nothing had happened. Elias rubbed his shoulder, still processing the shock. "I had no idea," he said. Celia's expression remained calm, almost unreadable. "Appearances are deceiving, Commander. It is why we observe before we act, and it is why you must never underestimate anyone, not even me." That night, as he finally rested, Elias realized the journey ahead would be far more dangerous than he had imagined. The Laurani were not as simple as they appeared, and Celia, the small, soft-spoken, seemingly gentle alien, was far more formidable than anyone had suspected. In the silent corridors of the station, he thought of the words she had spoken. Quiet does not mean weak, and he knew, deep down, that humanity's greatest strength might not be raw power, but its willingness to see beyond appearances, to adapt, and to trust when it mattered most. The first day on the Laurani station had ended, but Elias knew this was only the beginning. Something was stirring beneath the calm exterior of this alien world, and he had just glimpsed the first spark of what could be an extraordinary alliance or a deadly conflict. And Celia, small, soft-spoken, and sweet, had just shown him that she was not to be underestimated. The station's calm exterior belied the tension simmering beneath. Commander Elias Monroe had spent the night replaying the events with Celia in his mind, unable to shake the shock of her sudden display of strength. The revelation of her abilities changed everything. She was no ordinary diplomat, no timid observer. She was a force capable of decisive action when circumstances demanded it. And if the rogue drones that had attempted the breach were any indication, the threat to both humans and Laurani was far greater than they had imagined. The next morning, Elias convened a meeting with Lieutenant Rizah and the rest of the human delegation. "We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with," he said, pacing the small room. "Yesterday's breach, it wasn't random. Someone knew we'd be here. They were testing us." Rizah frowned. "But the Laurani security protocols are supposed to be flawless. How could anyone penetrate them?" "Exactly," Elias said. "Which means it wasn't a failure of their systems. It was targeted. Someone on the outside is probing, looking for weaknesses. And we're in the middle of it." The human team agreed on a plan to remain alert, to strengthen communication security, and to keep a close eye on the Laurani personnel. They hadn't anticipated that the most significant element would be the small alien woman who had saved him. Elias realized that Celia could be the key to understanding not just the Laurani culture, but the hidden dangers within the station. By mid-morning, he had found her in one of the observation decks, gazing at the swirling violet clouds outside. The deck overlooked the edge of the station, where the planet's atmosphere met the thin space above. Celia turned to him as he approached, her expression calm and composed. "You are thinking about yesterday," she said softly. Elias nodded. "I can't stop thinking about it." "You moved faster than I could comprehend. Why didn't anyone else notice?" Celia smiled faintly. "Because it is not customary to display strength unnecessarily. Our culture values observation, patience, and restraint, but danger requires action. You were in danger. That is why I acted." Elias considered her words carefully. "So you are trained for combat?" "In a sense," she replied. "It is a discipline. We learn to defend, to protect, to observe before we act. Most of the time, our appearance convinces others we are weak. That is intentional. It allows us to avoid conflict until it is necessary." Her explanation gave him a new perspective. The Laurani's soft demeanor was not weakness, but a deliberate strategy. It was a philosophy of restraint, but also a tool for survival. And it made him realize that humanity's own approach, direct, adaptable, and unafraid to act, might be a perfect complement to their methods. The warning from last night came back sharply when an alert signaled movement in the station's lower levels. The human team rushed to their monitoring stations, only to find signs of tampering in the docking bay where supply transports arrived from nearby planets. "They're testing the perimeter again," Rizah said. Elia's mind raced. "Get me Celia, now." Within moments, she appeared, moving through the corridors with silent precision. Her small frame belied the strength that he had witnessed, but her presence alone seemed to command attention. "They are not attacking openly," she said, analyzing the data on the console. "They are probing. They want to see how we respond, how quickly humans react." Elias frowned. "And how fast are we supposed to react?" "Faster than they expect," she said simply. "They underestimate humans. That is your strength. But you must trust in your instincts and in those you choose to work with." He nodded. Trust had always been a key factor in survival, whether on a battlefield or in a diplomatic mission. And now, it seemed, it was more critical than ever. The next hours were a tense series of observations. Drones, seemingly innocuous, appeared at random points around the station. Each was neutralized by Celia before it could cause harm, yet Elias noticed a pattern. The drones were testing human reactions, analyzing strategies, and mapping potential weaknesses. "Why aren't they attacking directly?" Elias asked. "Because they are patient," Celia said, "and because they believe we will fail." Elias understood. The enemy expected hesitation, confusion, or underestimation. That was exactly why humans had an advantage. Unlike many species who relied on ritual and protocol, humans adapted, improvised, and learned quickly. That adaptability, combined with Celia's hidden strength, made them unpredictable. By mid-afternoon, the probing escalated. A small group of autonomous drones breached a maintenance corridor, bypassing some of the station's outer defenses. Elias prepared to engage, but Celia moved first. Before he could react, she intercepted the drones, her movements precise and instantaneous. She pinned one against the wall with a strength that startled even the seasoned human officers, disabling its systems with a few swift gestures. "Commander, take cover," she said, holding the drone steady. "They will not expect me to act this way twice in succession." Elias moved instinctively, ducking behind a console while she neutralized the remaining drones. The speed, coordination, and efficiency of her actions made it clear that her species' reputation for gentleness masked extraordinary combat capabilities. After the drones were destroyed, she released the last one, stepping back with the same calm composure she had displayed the day before. "They are learning," she said softly. "They will adapt to our reactions, and they will attempt a larger move soon. You must be ready." Elias felt a mixture of awe and respect. This small, soft-spoken alien had saved the station multiple times, and her strategic mind was clearly as sharp as her physical abilities. Humanity had arrived expecting to negotiate with peaceful allies, and instead had discovered a partner capable of extraordinary action when circumstances demanded it. As evening approached, the human delegation gathered to plan their next steps. Elias addressed them firmly. "We are not just observers here anymore, we are participants. This threat, whoever they are, will test us, but humans have always succeeded against the odds. We adapt, we survive, and we will use every advantage we have." Rizan nodded, "Including Celia's abilities." Elias smiled slightly. "Including Celia's abilities, but it's more than that, it's our perspective. We see possibilities others overlook. We take risks when others hesitate, and we fight in ways that cannot be predicted." The plan was simple but effective. They would monitor all station communications, track drone movements, and prepare for any breach. Meanwhile, Celia would continue to act as both protector and strategist, guiding them in ways the human delegation could not have foreseen. Night fell over the floating station, but the sense of unease persisted. Elias paced the observation deck again, watching the violet clouds swirl below. The rogue faction had not revealed themselves directly, but their presence was undeniable. Every movement, every signal, every minor disruption was a calculated test. Celia appeared beside him once more, her soft-spoken voice cutting through the quiet. "They believe you are vulnerable," she said. "They do not understand humans. That will be their mistake." Elias smiled, a mixture of determination and relief. "And that's exactly why we will succeed." The hours passed, each one filled with tension and careful observation. Then, without warning, the station's alarms blared. Multiple drones had breached the outer docking platforms, moving with speed and precision. This was no longer a test. This was an assault designed to overwhelm them. Elias moved to the control console, barking orders to the human team. "Contain the breach. Reza, get the communications secured. All teams, report to defensive positions." Celia moved through the corridors with lethal grace, intercepting drones before they could reach critical systems. Her movements were almost a blur, precise, efficient, and completely unexpected by the attackers. Every drone she neutralized reduced the threat, and every human action complemented her efforts. In that moment, Elias understood the full significance of the partnership. Humanity's adaptability and courage, combined with Celia's hidden strength and strategic mind, created a force that was more formidable than any single species could have predicted. By dawn, the breach had been contained. The rogue faction had retreated, leaving the station intact but leaving a clear message. They had tested the humans and the Lorani and found a threat they had not anticipated. Elias stood on the observation deck once more, looking at Celia. She was small, soft-spoken, and seemingly delicate, yet she had saved them all. She had revealed the hidden potential of her species, and in doing so had shown the human delegation that appearances could be deceiving. "You were incredible," he said quietly. She smiled faintly. "And you humans were remarkable as well. You do not hesitate, you adapt, you survive." Elias nodded. "And that is why we will endure, no matter what the galaxy throws at us." For the first time, he realized the truth of Celia's words from the night of their first encounter. Quiet does not mean weak. And the strength of humanity, its adaptability, courage, and unyielding spirit, could turn even the most unexpected alliance into an unbreakable force. The station was safe for now, but Elias knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was larger, more complex, and far more dangerous than humanity had yet encountered. And in the midst of it all, the small, soft-spoken alien woman who had pinned him to the wall had become an indispensable ally, a protector, and a symbol of the untapped potential that could turn the tide in humanity's favor. As the sun rose over the floating city, casting violet and gold across the clouds, Elias understood that the true battle was not just against those who sought to destroy them, but against assumptions, appearances, and underestimations. Humanity would survive because they could see beyond the surface, act when necessary, and trust in those who had proven themselves. And Celia, small, soft-spoken, and deceptively strong, would be by their side every step of the way. The calm of the floating station was deceptive. Despite the previous day's victory, Commander Elias Monroe knew the rogue faction had only retreated, not surrendered. Every movement, every anomaly, every flicker of signal across the communication network hinted at planning, calculation, and preparation. They had learned from their failures, but so had the humans and their Lorani allies. Elias gathered the human delegation in the central strategy room, a space filled with holographic displays of the station, the surrounding sky, and the orbiting ships. He gestured to a spinning 3D map that highlighted the last breaches. "They know we are not helpless," he said. "They have tested us, but that only makes this next encounter more dangerous. We must anticipate their moves, not react to them." Rizan nodded, her fingers flying across the controls to secure communications. "I've scrambled all outbound transmissions and encrypted everything internally. They won't know our positions." Elias glanced toward Celia, who stood calmly in the corner. Her small frame seemed almost fragile in the human-dominated room, yet he had learned the truth. She was anything but fragile. "They will come in greater numbers," Celia said softly, "and faster. The drones we saw yesterday are only the beginning. They will attempt to disable our defenses before striking directly at the station's core." Elias' jaw tightened. "Then we must be ready. Humans adapt quickly, and we will act where they hesitate. That's our advantage." Celia inclined her head slightly, as if approving the assessment. "Then we must also act with precision. Patience alone will not suffice. The station and its people will be in danger if we fail." By late morning, the first signs of the incoming attack appeared. Rogue drones, more numerous than the previous attempts, emerged from the clouded atmosphere, moving toward the station with calculated speed. This was no longer a test. This was a coordinated assault. Elias activated the human team's defensive stations, while Celia moved through the corridors like a shadow. She anticipated drone movement before they were fully visible on the sensors, disabling several with swift, precise gestures. Each move was deliberate, calculated, and deadly accurate, yet executed without unnecessary force. The human officers marveled at her efficiency. They had faced hostile species before, but none had combined observation, intelligence, and raw ability as seamlessly as Celia did. She was small, soft-spoken, and seemingly gentle, but in the chaos of battle, she was a force to be reckoned with. Elias took a deep breath and addressed the team. This is our moment. Humans are strong not because we are the largest or the fastest, but because we do not hesitate. We see opportunity where others see danger. We will act decisively, and we will survive. The rogue drones swarmed the station, attempting to penetrate the main corridors. Celia intercepted them at every turn, moving so quickly that the human team could barely track her progress. Elias realized something crucial. Her species' strength was not just physical but mental. She could anticipate threats, adapt strategies instantly, and execute plans that humans could follow but not replicate. As the drones neared the central hub, Elias took control of the station's emergency protocols. Holographic barriers rose, redirecting drones toward containment zones. Automated defense systems activated, firing non-lethal energy nets to trap the rogue machines. Humans and Lorani alike coordinated seamlessly, improvising as the drones adapted to the defenses. Celia appeared beside Elias in the central hub, her expression calm but focused. "They are testing your reflexes as well," she said softly. "They want to see if humans can act under pressure. You are proving them wrong." Elias nodded. "And we're not stopping. Every step we take is measured, every move deliberate. That's how we survive." Despite the precision of their defense, the rogue faction had one final tactic. A massive drone, unlike any they had seen before, descended from the upper atmosphere, cloaked in energy that distorted sensors. It moved with terrifying speed, targeting the station's power core. "Commander," Razaz shouted. "If that drone reaches the core, the entire station could collapse." Elias' heart raced. They had prepared for attacks on the corridors, the docking bays, even communications, but never for a direct assault on the core. If the energy destabilized, everyone aboard could be lost. Celia's eyes narrowed. "Then we act now. Stay close to me." Without hesitation, she moved toward the incoming drone, her movements a blur of controlled precision. Elias followed, trusting her instincts completely. Together, they navigated the maze-like corridors, avoiding smaller drones, until they reached a maintenance shaft that led directly to the energy core. Celia stopped at the entrance, assessing the situation in a fraction of a second. "It will not hesitate. We must act before it reaches the core." Elias nodded. "Then let's move." The massive drone appeared, its energy shield pulsing as it advanced. Elias felt the tension spike, but Celia did not hesitate. She launched herself at the drone, her small body moving with surprising force. She pinned it to the wall of the shaft, using leverage and strength that defied belief. Sparks flew as the drone struggled, but she held it with steady hands, her focus absolute. "Now, Commander," she shouted. Elias activated the containment field, directing a precise energy pulse that neutralized the drone's systems. The machine fell silent, its power drained, its threat eliminated. For a moment the corridor was quiet, the only sound their breathing. Elias looked at Celia, still calm, still composed, despite the extraordinary display of strength she had just performed. "You did it," he said quietly. "You saved the station." Celia smiled faintly. "We saved it together, humans and Lorani working as one. That is how survival works. That is how strength is measured, not by size, but by action." Elias felt a surge of pride. Humanity had arrived on the Lorani station expecting diplomacy, but had demonstrated courage, adaptability, and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. And Celia had shown that appearances could be deceiving, That strength came in many forms. As the rogue faction retreated into the clouds, their attack thwarted, the station erupted in cautious celebration. Humans and Lorani alike recognized the partnership that had formed in the heat of crisis. They had relied on one another, trusted one another, and acted decisively when hesitation could have meant disaster. Elias stood at the observation deck, looking out at the violet skies. Celia joined him silently, her presence calm, almost comforting after the chaos of the last few hours. "You humans are remarkable," she said softly. "You do not wait for certainty. You act. That is your greatest strength." Elias smiled. "And you, Celia, are remarkable as well. Small, soft-spoken, and capable of incredible action. I underestimated you at first. Never again." She inclined her head slightly, a faint smile on her lips. "And I underestimated humans. You are not reckless, Commander. You are adaptable, brave, and persistent. That is why you survived, and why we survived together." The days following the attack were filled with debriefings, repairs, and careful planning for the future. The human delegation took notes, updated protocols, and shared experiences with the Lorani leadership. The rogue faction's attack had left a mark, but it also created a foundation for trust and cooperation. Elias reflected on the events. Humanity had faced numerous threats, but time and again, their ability to adapt, observe, and act decisively had proven invaluable. The alliance with the Lorani, and with Celia in particular, highlighted a critical lesson. Appearances were not a measure of strength. Quiet, gentle, and small beings could be formidable allies, and humans' willingness to act and adapt made them a force to be reckoned with. Weeks later, as the station returned to its routine, Elias and Celia stood together in the central command room. Communication channels were secure, drones patrolled the perimeter, and the Lorani leadership had expressed gratitude and renewed commitment to peaceful cooperation. "You have proven humanity's potential," Celia said softly. "Your courage, adaptability, and insight are qualities that the galaxy should never underestimate, and they will not." Elias nodded. "And you have shown that strength comes in many forms. We may look different, but we share the same goal: survival, protection, and growth." For the first time, he understood the full significance of their alliance. It was not merely a partnership of convenience. It was a recognition that each species brought unique strengths to the table. Humanity's resilience, quick thinking, and courage complemented the Lorani's precision, patience, and hidden capabilities. Together, they could face challenges no single species could endure alone. Celia looked at him, her expression calm yet full of purpose. "The galaxy is vast, Commander. There will be more threats, more challenges. But humans, you are ready, and we will face them together." Elias smiled, feeling a sense of determination and hope. "Then let's ensure we are always ready. Not because we are the strongest, but because we never give up, we trust wisely, and we act decisively. That is what makes humans human." As the two of them stood together, observing the violet skies beyond the station, Elias realized the truth of the galaxy's future. It was not brute strength that would determine survival, nor sheer numbers, nor technological superiority. It was courage, adaptability, and the willingness to act when others hesitated. Humanity had these qualities in abundance, and with allies like Celia by their side, they would endure, thrive, and leave a mark on the stars that no one could ignore. The rogue faction had been repelled. The station was safe. But more importantly, humans had proven that in a galaxy full of unknowns, their resilience, quick thinking, and capacity to form meaningful alliances made them a force that could never be underestimated. And Celia, small, soft-spoken, and deceptively strong, had shown that true power often hides beneath a calm and gentle exterior, just as humanity's greatest strengths often lay in qualities others overlooked. Together, they had changed the game. Together, they would face the galaxy with courage, intelligence, and unwavering determination. The floating station, once serene and untested, now stood as a beacon of cooperation and strength. And Commander Elias Monroe knew, without doubt, that humanity had earned its place in the stars, not by dominating, but by adapting, acting, and proving that even against the greatest odds, they could survive, thrive, and inspire allies across the galaxy. The future awaited, vast and unpredictable, but humans and their quiet yet formidable allies were ready.